Hello, welcome to episode 46 of PubShorts. We can work it out. Tony, if you and I can work out through 45 episodes of PubShorts and we are delivering the 46, I'm sure that many people can work it out, right, Tony?
Exactly, and what a great song to base an episode around.
Yes.
The great Beatles, who will always be, I think, I think in hundreds of years' time, people will remember the Beatles.
Right. So this episode is titled after the Beatles song, obviously, but we are referring to some news from Europe and the UK in terms of libraries struggling and
Well,
copyright
particularly
issues.
UK, quite
Yeah.
concerning news, really.
Yeah, and we are hoping that everybody can work their problems out so that whatever funding problems there are,
Good
they can
link, good
solve.
link.
Yes, and we haven't introduced ourselves. So my name is Dr. KK. I am the innovation officer at Trinka and Inago. And Tony, please introduce yourself and the show and the brands.
Thanks, KK. I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm VP for Partnerships here at Inago. I mostly work with publishers, but I also work with research organisations, universities as well. So PubShorts is I say weekly, sometimes more than weekly, episodic podcast where Kake and I discuss topics relating to the use of technology and some of the other aspects of technology are changing the way research is being communicated and scholarly publishing. And so we're Inago, we're a language services business. We have human as well as AI-based services that we provide to researchers and to publishers. And yeah, that's what we are.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon. And if you resonate with some of the stories, share it with your friends, colleagues, professional colleagues even, and let us know if you would like us to cover something different. And we are always thankful for all the feedback that we've received so far, and we have
Yes.
tried to put all your feedback into the content of our show. So with that, Tony, I'm ready to start talking about the story that the title is based on, or title is inspired by. So it is from the Times Higher Education portal. The story is titled UK University Libraries. Uh, Pound sterling 51 million worse off
It's about
than,
75 million US.
yeah, 75 million USD worse off than last year. And you are an expert, I know, but I'll read out some of my notes from after reading the story. So the spending on journals and academic resources has been reduced by 76% of libraries. 76% of libraries have reduced it, prompting some major universities to exit major deals with publishers like Elsevier. And this reduction reflects a broader impact of budget cuts on access of academic content, and more than half of these libraries, approximately 56%, are in the process of restructuring or have already restructured, while 21% have been asked to make additional cuts in the next academic year, and some more are unsure of what to do. So a big story. I mean, having grown up with British Library, I'm sure that it is also getting affected to a certain extent. So I'll let you now take the stage and explain to us how this what this means in terms of UK and global research.
Well, what does this mean? The fact that UK libraries are 51 million pounds worse off than last year is just, I think, endemic of some of the problems that the UK have seen over the last few years with falling international student numbers. Brexit had a huge impact,
Mm-hmm.
where tuition fees have been frozen. Costs have been There've been rising inflation costs in universities as well, without any necessary increase in the income, to such an extent that more and more universities are now operating in deficit. That on top of the fact that libraries are spending an increasing amount of their diminishing budgets on these large open access deals, read and publish deals, it means that those small to medium sized libraries, and in fact some of the bigger libraries as well, are really struggling to make ends meet.
So, is there a government initiative which is similar to many of the transformative agreements that we have heard of in other countries?
No, there is. Well, yes and no. The UK has an organisation called JISC, which is the Joint Information Services Committee or Council Committee, I think. And basically, it's JISC's role to provide technology and increasingly to provide, and had for the last 20 plus years, provide licensing for UK university libraries and for universities. So it's not necessarily funded extra by the UK government, but the service is made available through the UK government
Mm-hmm.
through JISC. And it's JISC, and what JISC does is it creates model licenses which it can then provide to universities to then license services like journal content or open access deals, read and publish deals with individual publishers.
Right. I mean, would you agree with me when I state that experts like you would be key in terms of figuring out the structuring of the funding for institutions and libraries and consortia so
Gosh,
that these.
there are people far better than me, far more expert than me, that can sort of guide on terms of library funding and library structures. You know, I have experience in terms of managing these large consortia deals, and have done well, not so much recently, maybe, uh, but no, but it's a major issue
Mhm.
for UK universities at the moment, and it's not just relating to libraries. As I say, it's about the fact that there are so many pressures. It's almost like this perfect storm of pressures that seem to be happening at once. That's impacting on not just on the library, but on every aspect of the university. You know, where there was did I read recently there was something like 10,000 job cuts in universities, and they're expecting a similar number of job cuts again in universities in the coming year. So it's a really tough time.
Right, a really tough time and really different time because in countries like India there are new initiatives such as the One Nation One Subscription policy,
Yeah, sure.
and all the publishers who are part and those who are not part of such this initiative need to rethink their strategies, and we are offering our services, right, Tony, to help such publishers.
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, for the One Nation One, the ONOS deal, we're positioned in India with a large centre in India to be able to help publishers position themselves within
Right.
the Indian academic market.
Right, and we have published a report that is available for everybody to read. And if suppose you're interested in having conversations to explore how you can, as a publisher, how you can change your strategies, your strategies for the upcoming years in
Yeah,
India, please get in touch with Tony or anybody from Inago. You can find us on LinkedIn.
absolutely. And if you want to find that report, just Google ONOS report in Argo,
Yeah.
India, and you'll get a copy of the report free of charge.
Right. Okay, so moving on to another, I guess, copyright related story. It's from Scholarly Kitchen, one of two articles that we are covering. It is written by Roy Kaufman, and the title is Copyright's Big Win in the First Decided US Artificial Intelligence Case. So, Tony, to contextualize, artificial intelligence, one of the problems or one of the issues that has not been addressed properly is the numerous lawsuits against copyright infringements against, I guess, AI vendors like OpenAI, and this is the first such, let's say, the decision that has been publicized. So let me just try to read my notes. It discusses the first U.S. court decision for AI training and copyright, which is what the controversy is. The court ruled in favor of the copyright holder Westlaw Publishing, and it involved unauthorized copying of their database by Ross Intelligence. And the court's decision was based on fair use analysis, even though both Ross Intelligence and Westlaw Publishing had 2 points in favor, but they eventually ruled in the favor of Westlaw Publishing. So, Tony,
Yeah.
your thoughts on this?
Well, fair use is an interesting thing. Fair use is, I don't know if you know what fair use is in a legal sense, but it's a doctrine that allows people to use copyright material without permission in certain circumstances. And it's in that certain circumstances that's important, because the only people that can decide what fair use is are the courts.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretty much decide on each case. There are no specific words that automatically apply fair use. And really, it depends on a number of factors, whether the use adds new meaning or expression to the original, the nature of the copyright work, whether the use is for criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, of research. There was an argument that fair use, for example, is academic use is fair use,
Mm-hmm.
and there should be less restrictions for academic use, and let's say for commercial use. But it's this, going back to this particular case. I'm not surprised. I suppose I'm surprised it's taken this long for the first ruling to come out,
Right.
and I think we'll see this as the first of many. And this is a law. This is a big law content producer that is protecting its IP. I think rightly so, protecting its intellectual property
Right.
from being abused.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's all about how content should be licensed.
Right.
I think these test cases are really important.
Right. Right, the court found that the use was commercial and not transformative, and it emphasized the potential competition and market impact. And Tony, the most important thing, this decision sets a precedent for future AI and copyright cases, because which is very
Yeah,
important. Content licensing is a main thing, and this is a wonderful article because we are segueing into licensing frameworks. Another article published on the Scholarly Kitchen blog by Todd Carpenter, who we have covered, whose stories we have covered. So it's titled "We Could Use Our Model Licensing Frameworks for Scholarly Content in AI Tools." This is what Tony
yeah,
was just mentioning,
yeah.
academic scholarly use. So I'll just read out my notes. We obviously need a model licensing framework, and many publishers collaborate with AI developers, but licensing is often complex. We have already covered that in terms of what should be written and everything. A standardized framework, Todd argues, could simplify these processes, similar to past library licenses. So, in the context of library licensing, do you agree with Todd in the sense that these are similar and such licensing frameworks could also be applied for AI content training, Tony?
Absolutely, a model licensing framework would help at a national level. It doesn't really help at a global level because every country has its own interpretations of copyright law and on fair use, for example.
Right. And
Certainly at a national level, having a model licensing framework in the UK would absolutely help every single university in the UK. In the US, it's slightly different because again, each state manages itself slightly differently. But you can imagine it would certainly smooth the way for a lot more of these deals to be done.
yeah, so it's the article suggests learning from the past experience of library content licensing and for AI content licensing, and it thinks that, as in Todd thinks that it would improve the efficiency, consistency, clarity, and fairness of such models, and apparently,
That's the good thing about. Sorry to interrupt you, KK.
yeah.
That's the good thing about this India One Nation the ONOS deal. Is that they're applying a single license. As far as I understand it, I might be wrong, but they're applying a single license for all state-funded organisations in India.
Yeah.
And I think that will certainly help publishers in terms of understanding what the opportunity and what the restrictions are of them dealing with that license.
Right, and it also mentioned, the article also mentioned startups and alliances working on licensing. We already have a tracker by Ithaca SNR, which is published, so we can keep you can refer to it for understanding what sort of content has been licensing agreements have been reached by publishers and big AI companies.
Yeah, but we're going to see a lot more of this.
Right.
I think Todd's absolutely right. There should be a structured model license, which then can be adapted at a regional level.
Right, and now we have a bunch of quick hits of starting off with a transformative agreement story. It is a press release, Springer Nature's transformative agreement with, I'm not going to pronounce this right, so I'll let you. Couperin sees number of participating French institutions more than double, so it's obvious. 17 institutions were there in last year July, but now there are 49 institutions, and it allows institutions to publish open access, enhancing the visibility and impact of French researchers and supporting global research collaboration. So this includes 2,200 titles from Springer, Palgrave, and Adis, I think, as far as I know. So interesting.
Adis, yeah, medical
Yeah.
publishing.
Yeah, so we just talked about transformative agreements in the UK. At least in Europe, we are seeing a lot of similar stories, right, Tony?
Yeah, we are, and although this is good news in France, it's kind of, you could probably replicate this story with every major publisher in most developed markets. That most markets are moving from traditional content models to transformative agreements. The fact that in this particular case, the French have moved from 17 institutions to 49 institutions is just a reflection of the fact I don't think there's any additional funding available here. So it's taking that time for those institutions to be able to manage their funds in order then to commit from their own funding.
Now, moving north latitudinally, we have a story from Norway. Sikt. Sikt
So
is
same thing again.
yeah.
Although with Frontiers, it's a pure open access deal.
Right.
So it's about funding APCs, I believe.
Right. So, a Norwegian Agency for Shared Services and in Education and Research is SIGT. It's a consortium, as far as I understand, and it has renewed the open access deal with Frontiers, and 36 institutions will benefit from this agreement. And this includes, it all covers discounts on article charges and flexible invoicing. So, another story from Europe in terms of different agreements or renewals of open access or transformative agreements. So Europe is going through a transformative change in terms of.
I think Europe was kind of pioneering with some of these agreements. It was one of the first ones to adopt the open access agreements or transformative agreements. So again, it's good to see this as a positive step, particularly if you're a Norwegian researcher, which is generally a well-served market anyway. But no, it's always good to see positive stories like this.
And another related story, IFIL OA publishing agreements now cover approximately 3,000 journals. So, Tony, could you contextualize IFIL? What it
Have
is?
you ever heard of IFL before?
I have, but I do not know much about it.
IFL is a non-for-profit organisation that works with libraries to allow access to knowledge in developing and transition economy countries in Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America. It started maybe sort of 25 years ago, and it's the whole purpose was there to democratize the use of content in these markets, which would otherwise not be able to have access to this material. And there are similar organisations like Hinari, for example, or I can't remember what it's called now, but there are organisations but their focus is on saying, look, if you're in a developing country or in a transition economy, IFL can make some funding available to help you access content that you need to do to carry out your research.
Yeah, the renewed agreements include with the Microbiology Society as well as the Gruter. So more and more, and it obviously affects a lot of nations in Africa, Asia, and probably Eastern Europe and Latin America. So it's a very important.
It is very important. But look at the numbers. It's 2,927 journals. That's great. It's a good block to have. There are over 35,000 journals.
Right.
So a lot of these institutions, a lot of these markets still don't have access, or maybe the kind of access they need to some other content that might be more important.
Right. So authors from partner countries can publish open access for free or at reduced cost, and the newly added countries are listed here. So some Eastern European countries as well as Zimbabwe, which is interesting.
Well, they had these. They used to have these tiers of low income, low middle income, some World Bank classifications that were applied. So if you're in a low income country, if you're in a sub-Saharan African country, for example, it's very likely that your local university doesn't have the sort of funds available to sort of license some of this content. So this is just helping them to make their content available.
Right, and
it's interesting to see countries like Latvia and Lithuania added, because they're EU members, and they're still considered to be transition countries.
Talking about Latvia, Tony, quickly, the animated feature that won the Oscar, Flow.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's a lovely movie. Another, I guess, publishing related news is EU open access platform must build trust among researchers. It is, I guess, an opinion article from Times Higher Education. So we are talking about the Open Research Europe. It's abbreviated as ORE. ORE has expanded its eligibility to all researchers from participating countries and institutions. So the involvement of 10 national research organizations could help generate new trust in the platform. And the entire open access, that there needs to be a push, and there needs to be more trust is the thrust of the article. So do you have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on ORE and the general open access movement from Europe? In European
the European Commission have not been shy in terms of positioning themselves as wanting to make EU-funded research available without limitations to all. An open research Europe, which is an open access platform, is a manifestation of that. It's not saying if you don't have a repository or a source where you can actually make your content freely available, we'll make it available for you.
Yeah.
So it's a publishing venue for European Commission funded researchers across all disciplines with no author fees. So it's kind of like the ideal super green open access model.
Yeah, I mean, also it seems that ORE stores cookies and collects personal data to serve the customers ads, and that's one concern. And also they are talking about open peer review and other revealing identities of the different stakeholders, and these are.
So one of the concerns I suppose I have, I'm not sure if the repository got this quite right yet, is it's one thing making a version of that article available, but there's still the question of the version of record. What is it that the author, him or herself, cites when they're referencing that content? Do they cite the repository version, such as ORE, or are they citing the journal, which is arguably the definitive version of
But
record. So, but it's great in terms of it's making EU funded content available um, via an EU funded platform.
right. And the last story, it's just, I don't know. I thought I had to ask you this question, but I'll ask you the question after reading out the story. A robot startup figure reveals an AI breakthrough called Helix. The company also released a video showing two humanoid robots putting away groceries. So it's as simple as this. I watched the video. It was fun, and Tony, we are very much in the world of artificial intelligent robots
You're living
invading
in
up.
the future, KK.
What?
You're living in the future.
We are living in the future. Yeah, I mean, there are so many. I mean, I'm so, yeah, as in, I bury myself in science fiction, and this is science fiction coming true. And the interesting thing, the figure recently ended a partnership with OpenAI to focus on its own in-house development. So this video is entertaining. Tony, are you ready for robot assistants to enter your private home and
Uh,
help you?
no,
Have you had a Roomba or
I,
something?
no, we played around with a rumba a few years ago, and we didn't get on with it. The cats didn't like it. So
I can.
we, not yet. Who knows? Who knows how our smart home will evolve over the next few years?
Right. So that brings us to the end of episode 46. We can work it out. So, Tony, where can people who are watching this for the first time and learning about humanoid robots able to sort groceries, where can they find all the 45 episodes of
Oh,
PubShorts?
absolutely. An episode where we've ranged from funding crisis to UK universities to robots putting away your baked beans. If you want to find more examples of this kind of content, you can go to our YouTube channel, just search for Inago Pub Shorts, and you'll see all previously 44, 45 episodes that we've recorded. You can contact KK and me via LinkedIn with any suggestions or ideas for future topics, or you can contact me directly at tony@inago.com.
Yes, and that again, for on behalf of Tony and everybody who helps us bring such content, this is Dr. KK signing off. We will see you in the next episode of PubShots. Until then, bye, Tony. See you.
See you, KK. Bye, everyone.